Hi, this is my review of Slaughter at Splinterfang Gorge. This adventure is a dark fantasy adventure compatible with both the Pathfinder role-playing game and Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And with a few tweaks here and there, you can pretty much convert it to any D20 based system. Now, let's talk about the quality. Oh, but before that, I must warn you that there will be spoilers in this review, so keep that in mind. The quality is pretty good. I only have one, small criticism, and it's basically that this is actually an event-based adventure rather than a site-based adventure, in my opinion, because you have very few maps. You only have a map of the general area and a more specific battle map for a camp in the adventure, but don't expect to find maps for every encounter and every section of the adventure. Now, besides that, the maps look pretty good, the illustrations look good as well, although I did spot a couple of them that I think are kind of like stock art, because one of them appeared in the Red Tide. The other one I'm not too sure where I saw it, but the rest of the illustrations, and all of them pretty much, fit the theme and the storyline. Everything is well organized and written. This is probably the best written total party kill games RPG product that I've seen. And you have an appendixes that are quite useful beyond this adventure. You could use them in other campaigns, especially those that are focused on goblinoids and bugbears. And now let's talk about the contents. The story is somewhat dark. There are many twisted and slightly, probably sick when you consider the overall tone of the adventure. Many dark and twisted elements. The main storyline is this. There is this powerful bugbear cleric known as Spragnok, and he joined all the bands of bugbears together so that they could fight against the Merloran elves. Let's see if I pronounce that correctly. Oh yeah, Merloran elves, sorry. And they were actually winning against the elves. It was pretty much a massacre. However, one valiant elf warden managed to defeat this bugbear, killing Spragnok and sending all of his forces away. They had no leader, no cohesion, and so that seemed to be the end of the bugbear campaign of destruction. However, there is this other group of bugbears. They feel kind of like chosen ones amongst the bugbears. They have powerful magical abilities. Some are more on the sorcerer side of things, others are more like bugbear clerics. And they planned the resurrection of Spragnok, but not simply like a raise dead spell. That they want to bring him back as an undead monstrosity of great power. And to do that, they need to sacrifice elven children. So the story begins with these bugbears once again, many years after the Spragnok attack. And the bugbears are approaching this settlement of elves and slaughtering all the adults and kidnapping the elf children. And one elf maiden by the name of Raliluka has been blinded, and she is the only survivor of that attack. And so the player characters will bump into her as she is taking refuge inside a tree. This adventure is quite difficult. That is, it's an adventure for experienced player characters, in my opinion. There are many ways in which you can get a total party kill if the players are not careful. And it has many details to create a good mood and atmosphere. You have a lot of player hooks. You have details on weather by day and how the weather changes, because there is this ominous feeling that there are some sort of profane and terrifying forces at work, working against the player characters. And you also have some things that I think are lend themselves quite well to supplements that deal with critical hits and anything related to elves and goblinoids. So for example, here you have a recommendation that it works great with Laying Waste, another product of Total Party Kill Games. I'm going to put a link in the description so you can watch my review if you want to see what that is all about. But I also think that this supplement will work great with Wardens of the Wild, another product by Total Party Kill Games. But if you don't have any of those, any supplement that has to do with very gory and lethal critical hits, and any other supplement that gives further details and classes and such related to elves and bugbears, they're going to enhance the theme of the adventure quite a bit, although they are not necessary. That's just my recommendation. And you have a dual stat format, so you're going to be able to quickly tell apart the stats from the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and Pathfinder, depending on the system that you are using. So as I was saying, the characters are supposed to be traveling near the Perenite Forest, and they will see these goblins burning and destroying things. And the most bizarre sight will probably be the goblins stabbing a tree, and blood is coming out of that tree, and that is because Rally Luca is hiding inside that tree, and some of the stabbing attacks of the goblins are actually piercing her skin, so it's going to be somewhat of a nightmarish scene, especially because you will hear the screams of the elf maiden coming from inside the tree. And so the player characters have to deal against fight these goblins, and there are templates so that this encounter could be a bit more challenging if you want to. And after rescuing Rally Luca, hopefully, she will inform them of how these goblinoids attacked the elf settlement, and they killed all the adults and they kidnapped the children, and she will ask them to save the children. So it's a bit of a gauntlet and a race, because characters will have to go deeper into this forest with many dangerous encounters. There are random encounter tables. You could run into wolves, bugbears, giant spiders, a wyvern, wargs, etc. So you have to be really careful. And there are even some more specific encounters. You may run into goblin warrens, or maybe into pit traps, other more specialized let's say shock troops of the goblins and bugbears and such. So this really feels a lot like a test of endurance. Perhaps some parties that have more wilderness inclined characters, such as rangers and barbarians, could have an easier time navigating this forest, but it's still quite lethal, running into all these war bands and taking care of not falling into the goblinoid traps and such. Eventually, if the characters are skilled and lucky, they will reach the Long Gouger camp, where the goblinoids are keeping the elf children. And this camp is a bit of a nightmare. As the player characters explore the different tents, they are going to see elf carcasses that were being cooked or skinned and such. And I also like that this camp feels quite real. If you're just walking in all naively, you're going to get slaughtered, just like the name of the adventure implies, because you have all the details on the different goblin patrols, and the times when they are resting, or when they are engaging in silly things like chasing around mice to torture them or whatever. And so you have to take care of those patrol schedules and perimeter traps. So it's going to be quite fun and engaging, in my opinion, for almost any party of adventurers to plan their attack into this camp, avoiding the traps, perhaps taking care of the patrols. And some of the tents inside the camp are also traps, so they have to be careful as well. And there's actually a dire bear that could be manipulated into attacking the goblins, because it's one of those elements that player characters, if they are smart, they could turn that adversarial encounter into an advantage or a strength for them. And here in the camp is when the player characters are going to get a bigger sense of the magical powers of the bugbears, as they run into different bugbears with magical abilities, and they're actually quite dangerous spellcasters, and if they have enough support, they will probably kill a party of adventurers quite easily. And so they will keep gaining clues and rescuing some of the elven children until they get enough clues to arrive at the conclusion that Splinterfang Gorge is the place where they are keeping the other elf children. And Splinterfang Gorge seems like a very cursed and dangerous place, like it's in its essence to be such a nefarious area. Because, well, for starters, there were two clans of stone giants that they fought against each other, so the land is devastated by their blows and attacks and running around, etc. And in this area, there were also a group of dwarven prospectors that they didn't find anything valuable there, and their leader went insane and he started killing his own men and his or dwarves, and his own dwarves killed him and they buried him without ceremony. But still they prepared this sort of like a burial chamber, and the goblinoids actually took advantage of this place to bury Spragnok in an attempt to resurrect him. And it feels like a race against time, because the group of elven children that they have brought to this site are going to be sacrificed little by little, one at a time, that is. And Spragnok will become stronger with each sacrifice. So if the player characters don't move fast and defeat the guards and go navigate the area carefully but fast enough, Spragnok will become quite powerful. You get that sense that he is becoming more and more powerful with each passing minute. And that's not all. Even if the player characters manage to rescue the elf children, they are going to they could become a meal for Spragnok, because Spragnok devours the souls of those that he kills. He's kind of like a bugbear mummy with very powerful magical abilities, all sorts of powers beyond what you would expect from either an undead or a bugbear. And there's a pretty good chance that the characters could not defeat Spragnok. Hopefully they will do it, but if not, Spragnok will probably become a major adversary throughout the campaign. And the characters will be rewarded for their efforts. Later on, they will meet up with the rest of the elves, those that weren't present during the initial bugbear attack. But overall, there are many ways in which this adventure could result with great enmity between the player characters and the bugbears, because there, as I was telling you, there are a group of other bugbears with powerful magical abilities, and they could seek revenge for what the player characters did, and stopping the resurrection of Spragnok. Or, as I was telling you, if Spragnok becomes too powerful, he's going to become the major adversary of the campaign. And at the end of the book, you have appendixes giving you further details to customize bugbear adversaries and characters, because, for example, you have details on Dark God of the Bugbears, Druge Head Splitter, and you also have relics of the bugbears, such as Rajar's Skull Helm, Bracers of Brutality. So all of this will allow you to customize an adversary or even a player character that is a bugbear. You even have some new feats for them, some teamwork feats as well. Now let me tell you what I think overall of Slaughter at Splinterfang Gorge. My only criticism is that if you are expecting to find an adventure completely mapped, that is, every encounter, every area, every site has its own battle map of sorts, you're going to be disappointed, because you only get a couple of maps detailing the camp and the general area. But looking at it as an event-driven adventure, because there are many people who also play Pathfinder sort of in the mind's eye of side of things, you probably won't be bothered by that. Still, I think that it's worth to map the different areas, because the descriptions are quite vivid, and you start getting a general sense and idea of how to create this dreadful, bleak landscape. I really like that the adventure scales the level of twistedness, or the sense of the goblinoids being quite sick and evil, because first, that encounter with Raliluka as they are trying to kill her, stabbing the tree she's inside of, and finding all those elf corpses and the missing children. There are even a lot of details that I skipped. Well, for example, when the player characters are just arriving at the gorge and they can hear the elf children crying like, ah, save me, you know, and you can play that even more tragic, more melancholic, or like a more anguish. I also like that they approach the bugbear stereotype in a different way, because you usually expect bugbears to be a bit more brutish and less magically inclined, but here they feel like avatars of something quite evil and fiendish. So it's a good adventure to give a more sinister and dark take on goblinoids and specifically bugbears, and the additional material of relics, feats, and the information of the dark god of the bugbears is going to be quite useful for other games. So I recommend this adventure if you're looking for a different take or perspective on bugbears. Just keep in mind that there are very few maps, just a couple of maps. Those that are looking for something a bit more strategic with miniatures and such will have to create their own maps. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.